Hi, I'm Toussaint Morrison with Onsite Public Media, and today we have a special guest here. Can you please introduce to the people who you are?
Hi, my name is Kimberly Handy-Jones. I'm the mother of Cordale Handy, who was shot down and executed by St. Paul policemen Miko Norman and Nathaniel Yance, March 15, 2017.
So, Ms. Kim, can you tell us, from that point when your son was killed by St. Paul police, what happened soon after that? Like, what ensued? Was it ultimately marches happened, or people reached out to you? What happened?
People had reached out to me. One of the first people to reach out to me was Valerie Castile.
Okay.
And she had been looking for me, and she put a lady by the name of Katie Cummins-Bacco on the job to find me. And so they found my daughter, and through finding my daughter, that's how they found me. Mm-hmm. So, when he was executed, I immediately came down here that same day. I arrived here that morning.
So you got news and just hit the road?
I got more than news. I got to hear them execute my son. Mm-hmm. And so I knew, and then there was a young lady that picked up the phone and said, "Oh my God, they just unjustly killed the man." Mm-hmm. And I started screaming and saying, "That's my son."
Yeah.
She immediately hung up the phone.
Wow.
And so from that point, I started calling his phone, and then I started calling his significant other's phone, and my daughter called my son, who lives in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so we both started calling the phones. Mm-hmm. And the police at that time were all in the building on all the floors, and he heard the phones ringing in one of the apartment buildings, and opened the door and pretty much told the young lady to give him the MFing phones.
Wow.
So they seized the phones.
So they had just killed your son, and then they seized the phones.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got the call, you hit the road, and then you get to St. Paul, and then what?
I get to St. Paul, and during that time, I'm on the phone with the BCA.
Oh, goodness. And the BCA, for people who don't know, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, they oversee the police in Minnesota, and they investigate the police, and usually the outcome is they then, say that the cop was going by their job, or they were just in accordance with their occupation, and they don't do anything. There's no repercussions at all.
No, it's the police investigating the police.
Exactly. As CUAPB calls them, the Bureau of Cop Apologists.
And I call them the Bureau of Criminals that should be apprehended.
Okay, there's another one, yeah. So you're on the phone with the BCA, and then what?
So I'm speaking to one of the policemen from the BCA who's doing the investigation, named Doug Henning. Mm-hmm. And he's telling me he's going to get back to me. He's going to call me. And at this point, where's my son? And I'm really not trying to hear from you.
Yeah.
Well, he's at the coroner's. Never went to a hospital.
Really?
In Regent's Hospital, from what I was told then and what I know now to be fact, is 3 minutes away from where they gunned him down.
So why wouldn't they send him to a hospital or call an ambulance and have him sent there?
They never did.
Okay.
The ambulance showed up, but 27 minutes later.
Yeah.
So, never administered first aid. Uh-huh. There was no preservation for life.
Yeah. It just happened right there, and then they just took him straight to the coroners.
Exactly. It was just like Dante Wright all over again. So when I seen Dante Wright video where he was just in the car and there talking to Kim Potter, mm-hmm. and verbalizing with each other, and nobody went to go.
Nobody's trying to get any
see about
any
Dante.
Help.
And my son laid right there on the ground, mm-hmm. right there, and they were all over the place.
Yeah.
Nobody administered anything.
And it's the same thing right now that they're speaking about in regards of Amir Locke, that it took a long time for an ambulance to get there and for EMT to get to the body, and they took the body from the 7th floor downstairs or something like that. So you're on the phone with Doug Henning, and you're like, I'm not trying to hear from you. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Then what?
And he was pretty much saying he'll call me back, and I'm pretty much knowing I'm on my way up there.
Yeah.
So as we're coming to Minnesota, I go to my brother's house, and I'm trying to put it all together and trying to figure it all out. A news reporter by the name of Mara Godfrey was calling my hometown in Chicago, trying to get interviews from my family, and she had spoken to my son, and she said, well, we hear that it was domestic battery, and my son said, well, he didn't think so. He said, but you know, all couples argue.
Yeah.
He says, but my brother wouldn't beat his girlfriend. So she printed that. And then all of a sudden,
So she ran with the story that it was domestic assault.
Yes, she ran with the police narrative and what she thought she knew.
Okay.
And so we're in my brother's home, and she's calling family members that had traveled down here with me. Mm-hmm. And they were like, lady, don't call our phone. And they hang up on her.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, within minutes later, 5 minutes later, she's on my brother's porch.
What?
And me and my brother come out, and she says, oh, I'm Mara Godfrey, and I'd, like to give the family a fair chance to talk about Cordale and, let the world know who Cordale Handy, was. And so my brother...
What does she write for?
She writes for Star Tribune.
Star Tribune, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so my brother said, look, get off my porch.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you don't want to tell people who Cordale Handy was? And my brother said to her again, get off my porch.
Yeah.
So...
And this is within the first 48 hours of mourning the...
Yes.
The loss and killing of Cordale.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I decided, well, let me Google the coroner's address.
Yeah. So you can see the body.
Yeah.
Right.
So as we Google, we get in the car, we go over there, and Doug Hennon's calling me. Well, we should be, giving you a call within an hour to come see your son's body, identify him. I said, you don't have to. I'm right here.
Okay.
And I said, where's my son?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, and the coroner, and there was some people that worked there, and the guy said, ma'am, just follow me. And I followed him.
Okay.
And my son was laying there on the slab.
Yeah.
Head cut from one ear across to the other ear.
Okay.
And I could see, and it was surreal. He looked like he was sleeping.
Yeah.
And at one point I started screaming, get up, get up. If you hear me, get up, because it looked like he was sleeping.
Yeah.
And so as I went close, they were like, don't touch, you can't touch. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm gonna touch.
Yeah.
You can kill him, but I can't touch him?
Yeah.
No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I remember my son they had shot him in both legs.
Okay. Jeez.
Because I seen blood spots on the sheet that he was covered in, and I seen the blood on both sides.
Yeah.
Where his legs were. And Doug Hennon, I remember, asked us to come into a room, my family and I, and he was asking for the code to my son's phone.
Okay, wow.
And he says to me, do you know it? I said, why would I give you the code to my son's phone?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm here to help you. I said, no, you're here to help the police and yourself.
Yeah.
You're not here to help me.
Okay.
I'm a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to convince a black woman you're here to help her? You've never helped black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was that. We got up, we left. And I remember going home. We didn't get home till the next morning, but I remember getting a call saying that they wanted to do a vigil for him, and that was April 19th of 2017. So I said, yes, that'd be fine. And you know, so they wanted to know, would we come back? I said, yes.
And who called about the vigil?
It was Monique Colors Doty
Oh,
and,
okay. All right.
you know,
All right.
Jess Sundin from TCC4J and Michelle from CUAPB.
Yeah.
They were all getting a vigil together. And
Okay.
I said, absolutely. And so that's when Val Castile reached out to me, and she wanted to see me because she was telling me about her son's organization.
Yeah.
And I never will forget it. She blessed me with a check. And from there, I met up with her at Katie House, and from there we went to the vigil. But I came up here with Black Lives Matter, Clyde McLemore, and other activists from my hometown, and a big portion of my family members.
Yeah.
So we came here and we met on 7th and Sinning. That's where the vigil was. And that's where he had got gunned down.
Yeah.
And we just, you know, we rallied. We spoke out about the injustices, and you know, and I spoke out about the killing of my son. And I can remember meeting Nico from Unicorn Riot.
Everybody was there.
Yeah. And he wanted to do an interview, and I said, I don't, you know if I could trust you. And he just put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, Miss Handy-Jones, you can trust me. I'm independent in media, and everything you say will not be cut. It'll be just like it is now in real time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when he explained that to me, and I said, okay, and I'd given him an interview. But you had other media sources out there, and I was not.
Well, understandably, because you just had Mara Godfrey from the Star Tribune showing up on your brother's porch, trying to bait you all into a conversation, and she'd already lied upon your son's name in an article. I mean, why would you trust anybody from the press?
And it was just, it was horrible. Oh, you know, she pretty much demonized him. She did, not pretty much, she demonized him.
Well, that's the attempted assassination of a dead man's character.
Yeah, so I felt like, you know, the law enforcement riddled my son's body with 8 bullets, and Miko Norman and Nathaniel Yance both shot at my son at the same time.
And are both these officers still employed by the St. Paul Police Department?
Still employed, still running around with their license to kill other kids. And,
okay.
you know, they shot him, so they even shot him under the sole of his foot.
And I heard that happened to Jafford Smith as well. Like that to me, so he's laid out and they're still shooting is what it sounds like.
Yes, when one started shooting, the other started shooting. You know, the gangbangers, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Gangbangers.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just crazy because I was so shaken and disturbed by Mara Godfrey's actions.
Yeah.
And so they did, we filed a lawsuit April 13th of 2017. And so we did a press conference. And then some hours later, the community got together and they wanted, at the Cultural Arts School, they wanted to do a community meeting, inviting me there. So me and pretty much all of us come back again.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and I asked the young man, I said, point out Mara Godfrey to me.
Oh, wow.
Because, see, I'd already knew. I understood the assignment when this happened to me. So I already knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to approach it. So we get in there, and he points out Mara Godfrey to me. Now, let me go back a little bit. After the press conference and the filing of the lawsuit, a young lady said, you want to go see Mayor Coleman? He was the mayor at the time.
Oh, no,
Chris Coleman.
Chris Coleman, okay.
I said, absolutely. And so one of the other activists say, oh, you're never going to get in there. I said, well, today I'm stepping out on faith. So when we get in his office, of course, you know, he's got his gatekeepers.
Of course.
And there's a white lady that came out and said to me, oh, well, Mayor Coleman is busy. I said, I am too. she says, well, he wants to know, can you come back and see him? I said, no, I'm seeing him right now. I'm here today in the state of Minnesota, and I want to see him today. So she says, well, ma'am, he's in a meeting. I said, and he's going to be in one with me when he gets done with that meeting, because I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
She says, you know, I'm so sorry for the loss of your son. I understand. I said, listen here, lady. You don't understand my position. I said, you have kids? She said, yes. I said, they're all living, aren't they? Yes. I said, then don't tell me you understand.
There you go.
I said, and you tell Mayor Chris Coleman I'm out here, and I'm not going anywhere until I see him. She goes back in there. She comes back out. She tells us, well, he says he'll see you, but he only wants to see you, Mrs. Handy-Jones. And I said, no. I said, you go back in there and you tell him I come with these people and I'm coming in his office with these people. I said, I didn't come by myself. I came with them, so I'm coming in with them.
Yeah.
She goes back in. She comes back out. He says, well, tell him he doesn't want any recording. I said, we don't have to record.
Oh.
I said, we want to see him. So we get into his office.
This is already sounding extremely shady. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you. I can't talk to you. Okay, I'll just talk to you. All right, I'll talk to the family. Nobody records. I mean, these stipulations just keep stacking up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he says, no recording. We said, okay. We cool with that. We go in. We get to talking and, asking him, what is he prepared to do about the killing of my son and just all the killings that are happening in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Well, you know how that goes. Pretty much the passing of the buck, pretty much, what the BCA saying, nobody's really interested. No, what are you prepared to do? What is your stance on it? So I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, tonight they're having a community meeting. Why don't you come out and listen to the voices of the mothers and of the community and people's concern? Oh, well, no. I got a meeting. He gave us every excuse in the world.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know what? I said, we make time for the things we want to make time for.
Yeah.
I said, I had something to do the morning they murdered my son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I said, but all those other things that I had to do does not take precedence over the things that I need to do. And right now I need to get down to the nitty gritty of why I have a dead son. So he hemmed hard around, he couldn't come. So when we leave, all of a sudden, I can't remember if it was the Star Tribune or WCCO, whoever it was, what media outlet it was, saying that I guess obviously they did an interview with him after we left out his office. And he said that he never got an invite to come to the community meeting.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
He lied. But what happened was somebody called that media outlet that put the story out there and said, let me let you listen to this. He was being recorded all the time.
There you go.
And so I guess they told him, you better pretty much have your ass at that meeting.
Yeah.
So we get to the meeting. There's Chief Extel, there's Chris Coleman,
Yeah.
and there's the other, city council members sitting at this table. And so when I come in, Chief Extel says, someone said, that's Cordale Handy's mom. He walks up to me, he says, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your son. I'm sorry. And I just looked right through him. I never said a word. So when it became my time to come to the mic and talk, I addressed the city council. I addressed him. Of course, I addressed Chris Coleman as well. And so we're communicating back and forth. And I said, is Myra Godfrey here? And nobody steps up. I said, I'm looking for Myra Godfrey, and I know you're here. 'cause I seen it.
Wow.
So one of, and I believe it was Sam Martinez, and one of the Valerie King, one of the family members of mine, pointed her out.
Okay.
She's hiding behind Nico, Unicorn Riot.
Wow. Okay.
And she does this with her hand. And I said, you demonize my son. I said, you never reported with integrity. You never reported with truth. And I said, and you have kids. I said, but let me just explain something to you, Myra. I said, anybody can Google. I Googled you. I said, you went to school here, college here. You've been a reporter for so many years. I said, you demonized my child. You wrote the police narrative. I said, it wasn't enough that they riddled his body with bullets, lots of bullets. And I said, you come behind them. And I said, and then you tried to assassinate. You tried to demoralize, criminalize, and brutalize my son's character. I said, how many times can you kill a person?
That's a great question.
I said, your job is to report with integrity and truth.
Yeah.
Your job is to put the story out there, not the police narrative. I said, not even really so much the story, but the truth.
Yeah.
I said, but let me just tell you my truth about who Cordale Handy was and still is. And she was so embarrassed. She literally was hiding in behind Nico from the Unicorn Riot.
Yeah.
And Nico stepped back, and I never will forget it. He turned around and put the camera right up on her. Exposed her.
Of course Nico would. Oh my goodness.
Yes, that was good
That
exposure.
is the move. Oh my God.
Good exposure.
Well, that's what should have happened. I mean, that's amazing. That he did that.
It was beautiful. And I stepped to the chief and I said, put yourself in Kimberly Handy-Jones' shoes. What if that was your son?
Yeah.
What would you do? He couldn't tell me anything. I said, it would never be your son. You're a white man with a white son. It'd never be you. You could never explain that to me. You could never tell me what you would do, because 10 out of 10, it wouldn't happen to you.
Yeah.
I said, but things happen. Your son could be crossing the street, get struck by a car. He could be in his bed, sleep, and die all of a sudden in his sleep. I said, things happen.
Yeah.
I said, but we pretty much know the potential of what happens when our children are being killed out here. We pretty much know.
We get it. We get it. And then the narrative that runs subsequently afterwards to assassinate the character. I've seen little to nothing or any attempts for any notable cases of white people that have been killed by police brutality to assassinate their character.
Yes.
Yet with Amir Locke, in less than 12 hours after he was fatally killed by Mark Hanneman from the MPD, he was already a suspect and he had a gun. And so it's this insidious, awful mechanism to essentially brand black people as guilty before a court of law. Yet, press is prohibited from labeling a killer cop, as a murderer even after they've seen the footage. So it's in that whole regard, the setup is that we have a disadvantage from the get-go. We're already suspects from the get-go, yet they are exonerated and seen as these noble
good boys and
champions
girls
of the city. Yeah. So he turns the camera on Mara Godfrey. You then tell Todd Axtell, how would you like it if you were in my shoes and this happened to your son? It wouldn't happen. And then what happens to the rest of the press conference as it wraps up?
Well, but before it wraps up, I looked at the city council and I told them, it's your job. You took these seats.
Yeah.
I said, you took these seats, you took an oath to the community, to the people in which you serve. And this is all right with you all?
Yeah.
I said, if you can't do your job, get your asses up and get them seats to people that will.
Yeah.
You know, and Chief Axtell, he looked perplexed, is what I'll say. He looked perplexed, and I spoke to all of them, and I said, I said, here in the state of Minnesota, I said, you all have an ability to put a new face on what Minnesota could potentially be and look like, and you're not doing anything. And it's not even Minnesota anymore. I call it Murder-soda. It is Murder-soda. This is a state where it's a state of a second chance, where if you have a felony, where if you're struggling, we'll give you help. And of course, we have a lot of struggling Black, brown, and indigenous people. Let's just be honest. And they come up here looking for the help, looking to get jobs, looking to do better with themselves.
Yeah.
But yet this is a deadly state for Black, brown, and indigenous people.
It was rated as one of the most unwelcoming states years ago. I would assume it's still somewhere down there in between 45 and 50, because the top two demographics that were leaving were people that came into town from outside of Minnesota, and they were like, what's going on here? Socially, passively, all this stuff. They would leave. And then the top demographic to leave Minnesota was young professionals of color, because the employment here is abysmal for people of color. The racial disparity in law enforcement is, some of the top in the nation. And the racial disparity in education has been some of the worst in the nation for decades as of now. So it has been a long-standing state of inequality and emblematic of just racism in general for people of color, and just unwelcoming. In that regard.
My brother's been here for quite a long time, and me and my husband, when my husband was living, we bring the kids up here all the time. But I always knew I never wanted to live in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
I always knew that.
It was nice to visit, not to stay.
Yeah, not to stay.
Okay.
And you would see, and I've literally had people ask me, "Are you from here?" And I'd be like, "No." And they'd be like, "How do you know so much?" Well, I would visit back and forth, and what I've learned about white people here, they are so passive aggressive. That Minnesota nice. I'm not Minnesota nice.
No, I would never define you as Minnesota.
No, I'm Chicago fire.
Yeah.
I will leave a trail of fire behind me. I don't, here's the thing. I can treat people like I want to be treated. I mean, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But regarding 12, I have no respect for them. Not any. And there is no such thing as a good cop. Because good cops would cross that line. Good cops would put a stop to these murderous cops.
Yeah.
But instead, your silence is violence, because by you being quiet and not saying anything, you just gave them their license to keep killing. It's not fair.
Let's say if you have 100 cops and one of them's bad, but the other 99 don't say anything about the bad things that bad cop does, then you have 100 bad cops.
It's that saying my mother and grandmother used to say, one rotten apple will ruin the whole damn bag, and the whole damn bag is bad.
Well, there you go, exactly. Because it's all complicit. It's all complicit, and it's people basically vouching for one another. Now, whether, the hundreds of cops leaving the MPD were due to resignation, a lot of different things. There are different circumstances why people left. At the end of the day, one would presume that some of those cops left knowing full well that they were not going to change anything. That they were part of the rotten bag. That they just weren't going to be able to change anything.
And I think for the ones that do leave, it gets real.
Oh, absolutely.
It gets real. It's that thing where it's CYA, cover your ass. And they know that their co-workers are so damn reckless you really can't cover your ass.
No.
Because, you could leave out of the precinct and within seconds, because they kill within seconds.
Yeah.
You could be caught up right along with them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a lot of them leave knowing shit. You can't cover your ass.
No.
Yeah, there's not a cover long enough, wide enough to cover their ass. Your ass is just out there.
They're showing their ass.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's it. And they've been showing their ass for quite a long time.
And not doing anything about it either. I mean, it's one thing for them to show their violence and their with them endangering the community and killing people with impunity, but it's another thing for everybody to cover for them. Okay, so we're back at the council meeting. Everything wraps up. Mara Godfrey's outed by Unicorn Riot. They turn the camera on her. You tell Todd Axtell, how would you like this if this happened to your son? And then what happened at the end of it? Did Chris Coleman say anything to you, or what was the end result?
I just remember Chris Coleman sitting there like he was just frozen.
Yeah.
He never said a word.
Yeah.
It was that look like when the kitchen gets too hot, get the hell out. I could tell it was heated and he wanted out.
Yeah.
Chief Axtell, he couldn't put himself in my shoes because that would never be his position. That would never be him.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, Kay Smith steps up to the mic. Oh, and I reminded him Black Lives Matter. I definitely reminded him of that. Mm-hmm. And Kay Smith steps up to the mic and she went into Mara Godfrey too.
Okay, well, now who's Kay Smith and what
Kay
does she have to say about
Smith is
Mara
the
Godfrey?
wife of Jaffred Smith, who St. Paul killed in 2016.
Oh, goodness. Okay. And for people that don't know, Jaffred Smith was killed in 2015. 16, and then Kay Smith recently.
She recently passed at the beginning of, I believe it was, last year.
Yeah.
Last year. I mean, that caused her a lot of trauma.
Oh, of course.
It really affected her mental and her physical.
You could tell. I saw her outside of the Capitol. I mean, it has an undeniable toll on everybody and traumatizing effect on everybody around them. I remember the daughter of the man who was choked out and killed in New York. She died of a heart attack, in her 20s, she was young, and obviously the trauma goes deep and it affects everybody.
Because you can think about a Tatiana Jefferson who was gunned down in Texas.
Yeah, they were knocking on her window. She grabbed her gun because she was like, who are these people? And
she was in there, and I guess the neighbor called because it was just for well-being, because her door was open and her lights was on. He didn't, and he was concerned because, at that time of night, I guess she never left her lights on and her door open like that. And she was in there with a nephew who was playing video games, and they didn't say a word, just went there and gunned her down. And the ripple effect of that was her father died,
Yep.
Then her mother died.
Yep.
I mean, this type of trauma, it wipes out a family. Mm-hmm. It's horrific. And you have siblings who, they're drinking, drugging. You have the parents. It causes a major effect.
Absolutely.
On family members.
So Kay Smith gets onto the stand and starts to address Mara Godfrey. What did she say? What did she have to say about her?
Well, she was saying that the woman that was, I guess, involved in the shooting. Well, she wasn't involved in the shooting. She was there when the shooting went on. And remember, they tried to say that Jaffred shot her in her eye.
Yeah. When
in fact, she said later on, it wasn't Jaffred, it was the police that shot her in the eye. And Mara said that was his girlfriend, and Kay was like, hello, I'm his wife. That wasn't his girlfriend. And she just lit into her really good. It was like, I think people begin to get comfortable because that's not the culture of Minnesota, where you call out, news writers. You don't call media out here. Mm-hmm. And so I guess when I called her out, it just opened up the door and people started just walking in. Yeah, come on in. That's what it should be. That's what it should have been.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if they're beholden to the community and they're representing the community, writing about the community, documenting the community, then they should be communicating with the folks that they're beholden to and that they're writing about. That's just plain and simply it, because what they're doing, which it sounds like she's doing, is writing defamation pieces, but then also branding black men as guilty before any court or any judge rules on it. But you can't have any court or judge rule on it because the cops just played judge, jury, and executioner.
That's right.
So then you have this insidious system that decimates a man's character, a black man's character, and then people read it and say, they did what they had to do. And then they chip in more trust to the law enforcement, when really it's more questions than anything. And it's more indictment towards them, which perplexes me, because Chris Coleman's gonna sit there and look like a statue in a wax museum and then exit, but has no answers. And it's the same thing that just happened recently, where you have Mayor Fry do the same Chris Coleman dance. Just show up, not take questions, stand there, not do anything, doesn't answer the city council, but then also stands on the idea that I asked for no-knock warrants or a reform on no-knock warrants nearly 2 years ago. But that's a lie. And it's essentially what it feels like. It's like they're pointing at the sky and saying that it's not blue. And then we're forced to sit here and be like, yes, you have a great point.
They feel like they could piss on us and tell us it's raining.
That's a great one too. Okay, we'll take that too. Yeah. And it's no. The answer is emphatically no. So what happens? So K. Smith reams out Mara Godfrey. Then what? It adjourns and everything goes back to normal, or what?
Then the youth step up and start asking for videos, start asking for audio.
Yeah.
And then they start saying, well, no, it says here in this section that you could do this. They started dealing with the law. It was to see the youth step up and bring it. I'm telling you, it was the best feeling ever as a mother, because I'm looking at black young youth who are really educating themselves and who are really getting familiar with their rights. It was just powerful. So the meeting closes out. We go home the next day, and what do I get? An apology letter from Mara Godfrey.
Okay.
I told her.
How did that feel when you got it?
Don't write me. Leave me the alone. And I was serious. Leave me alone. You've done enough. If you never do anything else, you've done enough. And I told her, if you're really sorry, you'll quit demonizing our children. And you'll start reporting the truth.
Yeah.
If you're really sorry. And the strangest thing happened to me here about 3 weeks ago. I was up here for Monique Colors-Doty's press conference. It was Marcus Golden Anniversary.
Yeah.
And some mothers from the Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence was to meet this news reporter. And I wasn't going to go, and I kept him and hawing. I wasn't going to go. And the Spirit spoke to me and said, go. I went. Lo and behold, the news reporter is Mara Godfrey.
I think I saw her a few weeks ago. This is all coming together. She's writing for the Pioneer Press now.
Yeah.
Or she was writing for the Pioneer Press all
I think
along.
it is the Pioneer Press.
Okay, not the Star Tribune.
That's the
So we're
Star
correcting that.
Tribune.
Yeah.
Well, they all alike when you think about it. And I look, I said, so Tashira says, I said, I know her. Tashira says, that's Mara Godfrey.
Uh-oh.
I said, sure is. So I go walk up to her. I said, do you remember me? Yeah. I said, who am I? I said, I'm Cordale Handy. Surely you remember me. I said, do you remember her? I believe so. I said, well, that's Jafford Smith. That's the mother of Jafford Smith. I said, do you remember demonizing my child? And she just looked there with a solemn face, and I said, I'm not giving you no truth. I will not share my truth with you. And I said, what have you done to change? I said, then you write these horrible stories and repeat the police narratives about our kids, and then you go home and feed your kids on the lies that you told on our kids. Your kids get full off of the lies. I said, then you look at your kids with loving eyes and look at ours like they damn demons. I said, how do you do that? And so I asked her, I said, you do know I give a banquet here every year, don't you? Yes, I do. I said, why you never wrote on that? Well,
Wow.
I didn't think you wanted me to. I said, you didn't think I want you to write on that, but I said, did you think the shit that you wrote on my kid I wanted you to write? You didn't ask about that either, but you wrote it. I said, but that's just it. When someone's doing something good, it never gets told.
No.
I said, but because you felt like you could demonize my child and kill his character, you wrote that.
Speaking ill of the dead is like, that's just code, like off the bat. Like you just don't do that.
And then your child is not here to defend themselves. You know, if you want to speak ill about me, at least speak ill about me where I'm living, where I'm able to step up and defend myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I just feel like that's another form of bullying.
Oh, absolutely.
And
No,
I told her, did you think that I was going to allow you to speak ill of my child and defame his character and not have something to say to you? I said, I'm not that mother. I said, but you know what? I said, you were doing it and getting away with it. I said, but you just didn't think you'd run up on a Kimberly Handy-Jones.
Yeah.
I said, well, that day you did. She says to me, she says, you know, I've been outed individually, one-on-one, but nobody's ever did me like you did.
Well, I mean, nobody's ever done that like she's done it. I mean, like, that's the whole point. Like, if you're going to publicly come out and defame Jamar Clark at his demise at the hands of Mark Ringenberg and Dustin Schwartz, you probably deserve to be publicly called to the carpet. The same way that Mara Godfrey should be called to the carpet, like, regarding Cordale.
Exactly. You didn't do what you did to my son in silence.
No.
You did what you did. You wrote it for the world to read and have an opinion, and not a very good one, about my son. So why should I, as a mother, suffer in silence? Why should I, as a mother, have nothing to say to you about what you've done to my son? Well, you wrote this for the world to see, but let me address you for the world to hear.
Well, yeah,
And
no.
she had been getting away with it, and that was the thing. And like I said, it's the Minnesota nice thing. And I'm like, wow. And when I got here, I seen parents who had lost kids like me, just hurting and suffering, and rightfully so, because a lot of them didn't have a voice. A lot of them were paralyzed physically, mentally, verbally, emotionally. And then you have little Kimberly Handy-Jones, who just takes off from the ground running, but I've always been a voice, and I've always been one to speak out and speak up. And I come here and do that, and it's just like, when I did what I did to her, it really did. It had taken the shackles off of every mother, every father, every sibling, every community member, activist, to be able to be free to say what they want and how they want it.
Yeah.
You know, that First Amendment is something else.
Sure
And I
is,
utilize
so.
the hell out of it, let me tell you, because that's my right.
Yeah.
And they will not take that from me. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And that's just what it is. And then you have white people writing in on the live streams, these keyboard warriors, as I call them, saying, oh, well, that's racist. Oh, well, she's cursing. Oh, well, she said this. You know, yeah, I'm going to say a whole lot of things. Stay the fuck tuned. Okay, because you ain't heard nothing yet. But you're more concerned about me saying the F word or the F bomb or whatever they like to call it. You're more concerned about that and not concerned about them killing our kids out here on the street.
Exactly.
People are just really, they're confused.
Well, I think
they're ignorant.
Well, at that point, it's prioritizing their emotions over Black lives, and that's why we have a screen print that says "Black Lives Over White Feelings," and so I'll give you one on your way out.
Absolutely.
But another part of it is exceptionalism, because this past Sunday, when a protest pulled up to Interim Police Chief Amelia Huffman's house, you know, there's noise out there, people shouting, and a young brother was giving a speech, and in the middle of the speech, a white woman pulls up and says, regarding Amir Locke, what kind of gun did he have? And everybody pauses for like 2 solid seconds, like, was that a legitimate question? What is she saying? What's going on? And then somebody's like, who cares? And then I shout, the hell does it matter?
Exactly.
And I said, what kind of gun did Mark Hanneman have? Anyway, so the point was that socially what's happening is this white, and then what she proceeded to say, because the young brother was talking about, if we have to compromise your comfort in a $1 million property value venue, then that's what needs to happen for you to understand that you're compromising our lives. But this woman then said, what kind of gun did you have? And people started shouting at her. And then she said, well, I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable now. And what's happening there psychologically is she's prioritizing her feelings or the way that she perceives the story of Amir Locke over Amir Locke's life. So Amir Locke dying has less meaning than how she feels about going about her day. And so when that happened, it's the same thing with some of these writers and a lot of people's white comfort. It's going to have to get rattled for you to start paying attention to what's going on, or maybe for you to start prioritizing, community members' lives. So
they hide in their white fragility. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say they hide in it, you don't know it's there until black people start talking about what is going on with our black community, with our black children, and how they're being gunned down and how they're being incarcerated. And then it becomes about white fragility. Well, personally, for me, I don't care about white fragility. Mm-hmm. We as black people were born in this circumstance. I can only imagine what my mother went through when she was carrying me in her womb. Like, what will be my black child's potential? Will she live to see it? Because all that went through my mind as I was having kids. Mm-hmm. Because, you look at the way of the world, and it's never been fair for black people. It's never been a place where we could go to sleep and feel comfortable, wake up and feel comfortable, go to a restaurant and feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's never been that for us. And, I had a conversation with a white woman, and she says, well, people talk about white privilege. I don't have white privilege. I said, but you do. She says, no, I don't. I said, you do. Mm-hmm. She says, I never used it. I said, oh, you've used it. You've just not been conscious that you've used it. And I said, here's the deal. If you never used it, and I know you have it to use. Yeah. That's the fortune black people do not have.
And it's an intangible. I mean, nobody could, you can explain, like, as a black person, you can explain the experience sitting down with black students and helping them out as a paraprofessional. There's an understanding there. There's like an immediate connection. But then to see the numbers from Forbes saying that, black people are, I think it's 6 or 7 times more likely to experience police brutality than white people in Minnesota, although black people are the minority, 20%. That says something. Like, they need to see cold hard numbers. Now, all of this is intangible. How can you illustrate somebody's thoughts? No, they're there. You feel them. Can you illustrate somebody's feelings? No. Can you tell me what racism looks like in a picture? Not really. But can you tell me what it looks like when you feel it, when you see it? Yeah, I totally can. I can illustrate it to you in being pulled over riding a blue bike and they were looking for a purple bike. I can illustrate it to you when I was jogging in college and they pulled me over and they say, what are you running for? I mean, that's it right there. And so that disproportionate predation on black people, whether it's with law enforcement or even with being questioned in a store or even being looked at. I mean, I remember some white women called the cops on a black woman in a city somewhere in the Midwest because she didn't wave back at them. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the question for a lot of community members is how are your constituents prioritizing white comfort over black lives or the livelihood of black people? And so it sounded like Mara Godfrey was definitely doing an amount of that. And so you see her a few weeks ago, and then how does it end? You bid each other adieu and you go about the press conference, or?
She asked me, if I wanted to do an interview right then and there. I told her absolutely not. I don't trust her with my truth.
Absolutely, okay.
And she gives me her card.
Okay.
And I took the card, and then I noticed a day or two later she did an interview with Monique Colors Doty about Marcus Golden. And I have to be honest and say, see, I'll tell my truth, my black truth.
Yeah.
The article was nice.
Uh-huh.
It was nice.
Okay.
But I'm still not comfortable.
Well, hey, you know,
And I
look,
will probably never, ever get comfortable. Because for me, how I feel,
yeah.
if you do me once, shame on you. But if
was
you
gonna
do
say
me
the same
again,
thing, yeah.
shame on me. I'm not going to keep allowing people to do me, because if you really cared about black lives, and if you really cared about black parents, and she is a parent, she's a white one,
Yeah.
to me, there was no humanity there. What, you know, and it wasn't even about the color of our skins. As a parent, I have humanity.
Yeah.
When white kids are being killed, I mean, I talk to white parents who
Yeah.
kids have been gunned down. I reach out and, you know, I talk to them, and that hurt is all still the same. I'm not looking at the color of their skin and probably saying, oh shit, they probably would blow up Wall Street or something like that. That's not what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not there to judge them. I'm there to be a sounding board, a listening board, or whatever they need me for. I'm there to hug them, hold their hands. You know, I'm not there to be judgmental, and I'm not there to sit back and read the paper and saying, oh, well, he did this and he did. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
He deserves
there's
to
no need
be
to
here.
dissect it, yeah.
I'm there to be a mother. I'm there to also greet and meet. I'm just a lover of people. And I you know, and as horribly bad as our people have been done, after our kids is killed, it's horrific, unimaginable.
Yeah.
But still, when I meet white parents, I don't do that, because see, I'm a human being, and I have plenty of humanity.
Well, I mean, at your banquet, from what I saw, I mean, there was people from across the board, you know, different folks there that have been affected by police brutality. And so at that point, I mean, how can you discriminate? I mean, at all. And then coming back to Mara Godfrey, and what we talk about in therapy is, you know, she wrote a nice article. You're not going to have an interview with her. In a lot of cases, we just call that a healthy boundary. You know, hey, I'll see you in the streets, and maybe, you know, I'll recognize you, you give you the nod, but I'm not talking to you anymore, because there's been too much destruction in my life that you brought.
Yeah, and I felt like at the lowest of lowest points in my life, lady, I was already down on the ground, laying flat on my back. And you did to me what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd. You put your knee on my neck.
That's what it felt like?
That's exactly what it felt like. Cause see, you know, that was it. It's like the breath you don't take when your child just gunned down. It's like it's the breath you've never taken. You
Yeah.
already feel dead. And you know, I want to shed some light on this. I died that day, March 15, 2017. I died. When my son died, I died with him. Not some of me, all of me. And I'm this Kimberly Handy-Jones that does things different.
Yeah.
You know, this is another chapter for Kimberly Handy-Jones, because that chapter's gone.
Yeah.
That old Kim, she's dead and gone. And I was sharing with one of the other mothers, I don't remember, to sound too much, what my life used to be when my son was living. I've been doing so much of this
Yeah.
out here fighting for racial justice and social justice and economic justice, just justice for black, brown, and indigenous people. I don't even remember what my life used to be like before this.
And so now fast forward to today, we're out in the streets for Amir Locke, and what were your initial feelings when you heard what had happened?
Speechless. Was I surprised? No, I wasn't surprised. Just speechless, and I seen that video, that traumatized me.
Yeah.
I just began to cry.
Yeah.
And it always takes you back
Of course.
to when it happened to you. And March 15th will be 5 years since Cordale's been gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. I can never get past it. because every day they're killing our kids. And when I seen the video, I thought to myself, wow, they go into the home with this key fob,
Yeah.
making noise, kicking the couch like they kicking at an attacking animal,
Yeah.
telling him to get on the ground. You're in this man's home or in his family member's home or friend's home, whoever home he was in. Screaming and shouting in his ear, and for some reason, you know, I keep thinking he never really was awoke.
Yeah. I
I believe that it was probably like a nightmare to him.
Yeah.
I believe Amir Locke left here thinking he was in a nightmare and don't even know he dead.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
Probably thinking he's gonna rise. He was gonna rise that day, but don't even know his life had been snuffed.
He was supposed to go to Dallas, Texas, to pursue his music career. Within a week, and then was ultimately taken. And so here we are again, and it's a little different now with a different police chief. Same results, same mayor, different city council. And from what I've heard, you know, there's not a lot of answers, and the mayor's playing a lot of his cards close to the chest. And
you know, that little boy there, that's a little boy to me. Mm-hmm. Jacob Fry, he's a little boy. Mm-hmm. He's a little boy. You know, we need a real man to take that seat, a man that's gonna stand up so this little boy can sit the down.
A real human. Yeah, there needs to be like a whole human.
Down. Mm-hmm. You know, he just had a baby. What was it, last year? His wife just had a baby. Mm-hmm. You know, go be a father to your kid and live in that privileged make-believe world that you are in. Mm-hmm. And quit playing with black lives.
And lying about him, too.
He's a liar at best. And you know, when Nakima confronted him at that press conference, he stood there, acting like he heard her. That went through one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
He's the type of person, you know what? You don't waste time talking to Jacob Fry.
Yeah.
You gotta show him what the hell you talking about.
When you saw that, did it remind you at all of Chris Coleman?
That's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of Chris Coleman, like, my body here, but my mind on the other side of town. I'm thinking about going home, having steak and caviar and some wine.
When at the press conference when they were addressing the police shooting and killing of your son Cordale Handy.
That's what he's like. I wish they hurry up and get over with this. I'm ready to go home to my life.
Because Jacob Fry it doesn't seem, he said that he had passed, you know, no-knock reform in fall of 2020. And yet here we are with a no-knock warrant that resulted in it looked to me just to be plain old murder.
He reformed it, but he's still lying, trying to back it.
Yeah.
He's still lying.
Yeah.
And Amelia Huffman, is that her name?
Yeah, Amelia Huffman.
The interim chief. You are not even the chief yet, and you come right through the doors lying, trying to back these murderous animals.
And then what she went on to say was that Mark Hanneman was essentially burdened with a split-second decision. When Mark Hanneman was burdened? But that's the point. So and let me introduce this to you, because I learned this in, we talk about this in therapy. And so it's called a reversing the victim order. And this happens in arguments when people don't take accountability. So you deflect what happened, and then you reverse the victim order. So when Amelia is presented with, hey, your people killed Amir Locke, what she does is she deflects it, and then she reverses it. And she says, well, Mark Hanneman was the real victim. Well, how is he a victim? He had to make a split-second decision, is what she says. So that was the same thing that the union said as well. So, and this is what happens with propaganda. It's like, hey, we got a tough job too. And that's what they try to sell people that are then justifying and then later on muting the killings of black people. So when she says Mark Hanneman was burdened with this, you know, split-second decision, you know, he saw a gun in front of him, really he wasn't burdened with anything. He had a whole team of people with him, had tactical gear, had a gun with him, had people downstairs. He was burdened with nothing. If anything, he entered with a discrete advantage and leg up on the situation. And you're also looking at a young boy who's barely awake and still had the sense of mind to grab his gun or go for his gun at least, in a safe manner. He had it pointed down with his finger over
down.
it. Yeah.
It definitely was down. But let me just say, that deflection is for their protection.
Oh, of course, of course.
It's bullshit. And in the real world, like you said, what you learn in therapy, you know, this is what's happening, you know, and how she's trying to really pretty much cover up or make someone else be at fault. But in the real world, here's my reality. Hanneman killed Amir Locke.
Yeah,
That's the reality of it.
At the end of the day.
He pulled that trigger. No one pulled that trigger but him. And so why would you join a police force, but yet every black person you approach or come upon is a danger to you? Why do you fear for your life? What was you doing before you? Isn't it strange to you that before they join these police force to become policemen, that they walk around all walks of life, all, you know, people of color, different nationalities. But yet when you get a gun in your hand, you see black people as being a danger. What was you doing before you joined the police force?
That's a great question.
What were you doing? You were walking around black people.
Exactly.
But what it is, now you have license to kill and to get away with murder. Yeah, I always ask myself that, damn, I'm walking around people in this walk of life, and they're white and they're different nationalities. I don't think to blow their brains out, they haven't approached me in a dangerous manner. Why would I join a police force and all of a sudden, you are a threat? I fear for my life. What the hell were you doing before that?
I mean,
were you fearing for your life then? You know what it is? A lot of them been bullied.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they're scared. Why do you do this? I'm not gonna go be a firefighter if I'm afraid to go in a burning building.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you know what? I'm over not just my life, but I'm over other people's lives.
Exactly. Destroying communities.
I am.
Yeah.
You know, and the biggest threat is to themselves. You know what? It's not us. We're not the threat. They had a threat. They went into that apartment, and I tell you, they came in there, again, like game hunters. They came in there hunting at them black bodies. They came in there being very aggressive, physically and verbally.
Oh, of course.
You could see the manner in which they before they even put that key fob in that door, you could see the manner in which they came into the apartment.
Yeah.
And each one of them are plugging each other up to the cables.
Just turning
each
each
one
other
of
up.
them is turning each other up, getting real amped up.
And it would behoove you to know that usually police officers, when they do a no-knock raid, they open the door and they stand in the doorway with shields and they just keep shouting, police, police, everybody come out, police, police, which is far more safer than what they were doing at Bolero Flats in downtown Minneapolis. Want to wrap up, and we're going to have you back for sure because we got to talk more and we got to get you down here with the roundtable with the mothers. But I want to wrap up and ask you this, as we might be running out of memory space on the cameras here and batteries, because I knew that this interview would go long, and I've always wanted to interview you, and I've looked up to you for so long. And for people that don't know, I ran into you for the first time, I believe it was May 31st or June 1st, speaking at the Capitol, and you turned around and looked at the National Guard standing there protecting the Capitol, and you said, each and every one of you, you're all I smell. And I was very puzzled at that moment. I was like, what's going on? Because I'd never heard anybody speak that vehemently at law enforcement. And obviously they made a t-shirt out of the slogan. But you went off as well, and you just kept going into them on their cowardice and how they have to hide behind a National Guard, bulletproof vests, tanks, all types of tactical gear and AR-15s. And here we are with nothing but microphones and our people. And I'd never forgotten that. And I was like, well, now it's either time to get on or walk home. I can go to Perkins and like go right back home and just call it a day and like say, wow, that's a whole lot. And I really feel like, just watching the movie. But I stuck around, and I've followed your lead ever since, and I truly admire you for that, and I thank you for that. But I remember there's a story you told how boots on the ground, the saying came about, or the chant, boots on the ground, we here to shut down. How did that come about?
That came about March 25th, the day I buried my son. And so after the funeral and the repast, I went home and I was in my bedroom changing. And when I come out of my room, my aunt looked at me, my Aunt Eula Bates. She said, well, Kim, what are you gonna do now? I said, I've kicked off these heels and I'm getting ready to put my boots on the ground. And she just looked at me. And I was in my restroom one day, in there, in the mirror, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear boots on the ground. We here to shut the down. That's a chant.
Yeah, it has been.
I did that chant for the first time here in Minnesota at the, what is it? It's called...
Is it in Minneapolis or St. Paul?
It's in St. Paul.
Rondo Days?
Not Rondo Days. It's...
Grand Old Days?
Grand Old Days.
Oh, goodness.
Grand Old Days. In front of the governor's mansion. That's the first time I did that chant.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
In 2017.
Okay.
May of 2017.
Okay.
That's the first time. And it is just, it's taken off like wildfire. It's all around the states. I've had my kids call me whether I've been here at home. Well, look, they're doing your chant. Good. I want people to catch on like wildfire.
Good.
And know it's okay to put your boots down on the ground and shut down. It's, and the strongest force you have is not hiding behind a gun and pulling the trigger. It's putting your feet in them boots and getting them on the ground.
And showing up, absolutely.
That's the strongest force we have as the people, as a nation. Mm-hmm. And you come there and you know what, I might come as one, but I stand as 10,000, damn it, in my boots. Mm-hmm. And I do not apologize for what my boots look like, because they've been through some stuff and they continue to go through some stuff.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I make no apologies for them at all. And people need to know that is one of the strongest forces you have, those boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing they don't want us to do. They don't want us out there standing in our truth, saying what they've done to our children, what they've done to our sisters and brothers' children. And it's crazy because I always say to the mothers, I'm rarely do I talk about Cordale other than I'm the mother. Mm-hmm. I say all the kids' names because they are equally as important, and we should collectively, because I don't want, the media is the strongest outlet. They have a tendency and they have the ability to make people believe them.
Oh, of course.
And a lot of times it's not the truth. So the reason why I say we need to say all the names collectively, because I don't want America to think that Cordale Handy is the only one that has been violently gunned down by law enforcement. I want everybody to know. So since the media is going to say, oh, it's George Floyd, oh, it's Dante Wright, oh, it's Breonna Taylor, no, oh, it's Marcus Golden, it's Jafford Smith, it's Brian Quinones, it's Isaac Aiden, it's Delal Eid, it's Justin Tigan, it's Cordale Handy, it's Jamar Clark. It's so many. And I think about all the families and mothers and fathers that have paid the ultimate price before me, what they've been through and went through. So I have to say all those names. And in saying all those names, that's my Pledge of Allegiance. That is my national anthem. That rings bells, whistles, and it sounds off horns around the world. And that is so important to me. And if the media is going to write something, write that. That probably would take up your whole damn newspaper. You would need stacks of newspapers. It wouldn't be enough in one newspaper. But Tamara Godfrey, I think people really like what she wrote. They like that bull, that negative shedding light on our kid and our kids in that negative way. They really like that because you know what, people do like that, right?
Well, it justifies what they think they are.
Yeah, and you know, I'd rather hear that the police are right and this person that's dead did wrong, and now I think maybe she's trying to come out and do a better job at it now. But, you know, it was getting likes and it was getting bought. And that's what people like to read. Well, you will not feed your children off of bullshit you write about my son. You'll starve to death. Mm-hmm. You will starve to death because it won't be Cordale Handy. And, and it's just sad. I'm not willing to let the media demonize my child. I'm not willing to stand back and be okay with them demonizing other people's children. You know, because if you demonize my son and he's not here to defend himself, you wouldn't care what you said about me or somebody living. You know, that's the thing. My mother used to always tell me, and I always taught my kids, you have a choice. When you see something and you know somebody's wrong someone and it's not right, you have a choice to be quiet and sit in your silence and do nothing and feel like at the end of the day, or you can speak up and tell the truth. Because if you don't speak up, you're just as guilty as the person that committed the crime.
Exactly.
And that's how I feel. Mm-hmm. So I just, I thank you for interviewing me. We're going to continue to keep our boots on the ground.
For sure, absolutely.
And to Mayor Jacob Frey, little boy, he needs to sit down and let a real man stand the hell up. Or a real woman stand the hell up. I wish Nakima Levy Armstrong would come out and run again. The people need you, champ. They need you.
I mean, somebody, a stand-up human.
Exactly, and he's not superhuman. He's inhumane. And then they run around here killing our kids and doing autopsies. No, autopsy need to be done on every last one of these police that run around here killing our kids. Do a lobotomy on them, split the head in half and see what the going on in their brain. Because something is not right upstairs.
There clearly is something not right. I mean, for them, for what happened to Amir Locke, again, in the city that was supposed to be the origin for an international movement, it doesn't, what it looks to be is that this is a city of elected officials, barring the city council, because I have yet to hear from them for what they have to say. It is a city of leadership that's run out of lies. They've run out of stories so much that they can't tell anymore. They can't tell anymore at the bonfire, aka the press conference. So they just walk out. And what's become extremely disappointing and humiliating in a sense is that you wanted to have pride and faith in this city that it would change and it would do something different or go a different direction, and yet we have the same product, same law enforcement, same leadership, and something's most definitely got to give. And I don't know where or when that starts. I won't sit here and pretend that I have all the answers, but the thing that rattled me the most out of this entire situation with out of the Mark Henneman fatally shooting, what I would call murder of Amir Locke, is that Jacob Frey would watch that video
and feel nothing.
But then come to a press conference and say that the video brings about as many answers as it does questions. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what video did you watch? What do you mean it brought about as many answers as it did questions? It pretty much answered any question that I had.
That he may have had, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
I agree.
Either way, I know we could go on for hours and days about this, but thank you so much for coming by the studio. Finally, we got to interview you. We hope to interview you again and talk about, more than just police brutality. Talk about life. Talk about what you want to see for the future of Chicago and Minneapolis and St. Paul when you visit town, and what you want to see for the future of the youth, because I know that they had a big stake in the press conference that you had for Cordale back in 2016. Correct?
I'm going to close with this. This is what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
If we don't change, nothing changes. Mm-hmm. And we have to keep making change. We really do. And we have to keep our boots on the ground. I'm going to always say that, because boots on the ground is it's not a logo or motto. It's really an action of life. It's an action logo. It's an action model. You know, those are the things that we have to do. It's just saying it and chanting it is not enough.
Yeah.
We have to put that into action. And again, if we don't change, nothing changes.
Absolutely. We get the same thing.
That's right. Nothing changes. And I'm not waiting for boy Jacob Fry to do it. I'm not waiting for the police chief to do it. I'm not waiting for these murderous policemen and policewomen to do it. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for people to say, oh, I'm awake. No, you need to be woke and you need to stay woke.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to keep our eye on the prize. We can win. People chant, I know that we will win. No, we can win.
Yes.
And we will win. We're winners. You know, for our ancestors to go through what they went through,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. We are winners. Because those people were paving the way for us to do what we were doing. There used to be locked doors. Now we get to walk through them. I tell you, I'm my ancestors' greatest inspiration to me. And they, you know, for my ancestors, they thought things. For me, I'll do things. I'll keep my boots on the ground.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Kim, and we look forward to interviewing you down the road.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you do. Thank you.
All right.